Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Soulful Journey. I am so excited to get started with you guys because I feel like what's been going on in my life lately is kind of what I've talked to a lot of other friends and family members, and they've been kind of feeling the same thing. So it's super on point with what I'm talking about with the new astrological new year. Excuse me, that's a tongue twister. But just this week, we actually got out of last year's energy, and I definitely felt it. And I felt it honestly all the way to the end. I was just talking to one of my girlfriends, and she was saying, just like how I felt, that really January and February was just like an emotional roller coaster. And it wasn't really until like March where it's felt like, I don't know, spring is upon us. It feels a little bit better, but it was still a little bit of a rocky start. But it really does feel like starting, these last, couple days is that there's been like a shift in the energy. So what's kind of sparked, today's podcast is I was speaking to one of my girlfriends and I just said, I'm really trying to find more joy in my life. And really, I kept laughing because I was like, what keeps playing in my head on repeat is like the Joker, what he said is, why so serious? And I really reflect on this when I was talking to her. I was just like, I'm really trying to find joy in the everyday or day to day. And it was so funny because after we had just had this conversation, I no kidding, I think it was maybe 10 minutes later, we had gotten off the phone and I'm saying out loud to the universe, I'm saying, thank you so much, universe, for all the things that I'm grateful for. And just having that conversation was one of the things I was so grateful for. And I was just kind of repeating all the things I was grateful for. And no sooner did I say that, I pull up to a stoplight and the car right in front of me has a sticker that says, why so serious? And I just started laughing. I'm like, I absolutely love having the synchronicities that happen and that follow me because I feel like those are my little signs of hope, my little winks that really help keep me going and knowing, okay, you are on the right track, you are in alignment. But, this whole concept of why so serious and trying to find more joy, it's a little bit convoluted, I'll be honest. And you guys have heard me talk about it before that I've been on this journey, this, spiritual awakening, this new leveling up, Leeann 2.0, whatever you want to call it, it's just been this shift. And I feel when I first shifted, it was, and I kind of talked about this before, I think in my first episode, where I was explaining that the first part of the awakening journey for me was really a honeymoon phase. Everything that I was kind of experiencing was all of the wonder, the excitement. It got my attention and it helped me to ask those higher level questions. There has to be more to life than kind of what I was used to living up to that point. And from then, I really kind of got into this mode of, okay, I'm just going to still business as usual, because I had quit my other job, as you guys all know, the big girl job. And as that kind of came to a close, I had this year, which was basically a year and a half, I would say. Yeah, give or take a year and a half, dipping into 2 years. But for sure, a year and a half of that time, I went from the honeymoon phase to almost everything was standing still. I felt as if the universe was really forcing me to just be still and sit with myself because I never really sat with myself before. And I fought it, of course, because I am a Virgo and I love to have my things that I'm doing and I love to just be, on my groove, my flow. And so sitting with myself, it was the first time that I really had to self-reflect. And within this, my whole point of it is that I went from go, stopping that job, everything stands still. And what I mean by standing still is my career. I was I don't know what I'm really doing with this. I've mentioned, I started doing QHHT, but my clients weren't really coming through. It was really slow. I didn't even have a car at the time because my lease was up. So I literally had to like stay and sit with myself. And I have always said, my calling, my genuine true feeling is that I am meant to help people and inspire people at some capacity. Although I'm still fine tuning what that looks like. I realized with sitting with myself that I had to actually, work on myself. Like I couldn't do what my old way of doing things was like, oh, I'm helping everybody, but I'm not helping myself. Do as I say, but I'm not following my own advice. And so in that time period where everything was kind of standing still, I really had to start letting go of things. And letting go of things, like I feel for myself, it was really kind of a natural process. Although it was not easy, it was not pretty. I swear I have cried enough tears to fill the gosh damn Pacific Ocean. But, I came to a point where I was just like, okay, I really have to, surrender to this. And a part of that kind of surrendering to this meant for me to, like I said, do my own self-work and let go of all these things. And so that part, like I said, about a year ago, it was really last summer was like when it really kind of hit hard, I was letting go of all these things and which no longer served me in general. But I came to a place where I was like, oh, I have to find joy, but what I started to realize is that you got to find joy in your day to day, but at the same time, that joy needs to be met with action. And so for me, what I kind of, started to do was I was, kind of still in that, like, I don't know, it feels almost like this interim period of, everything is slowing down. I'm letting go of all this stuff. Okay, finally, I've let go of a lot of things that I needed to and really reflect on things that I needed to. But now I need to find the joy in my life. And so I really focused on finding the joy in doing the things that I always said that I never had time to do, calling friends or, going to dinners and, picking up little like hobbies and things like that I, again, traditionally just was too busy. I just was too on that hamster wheel of life that I wasn't giving time to those things that gave me enjoyment. But what I started to do was I would focus so much on that I wasn't finding joy, balance in all facets of my life. And so it's been a little bit of a rocky road, and that's what has kind of transpired into this year was I really started to reflect on like, okay, well, how do I find joy in, my career? How do I find joy in, where I see myself? And I was just talking to my husband about this where I'm like, I feel as if like I'm on the brink of something that, feels like my thing, but at the same time, I still feel like I don't have all the answers yet. And this was driving me absolutely nuts. And what I realized is that the reason why I wasn't, kind of in that flow is because I was making it like it was a job. Like I have to figure this out. I have to, do, because that's all I've been doing my whole life is like, I've always been working towards something, but it felt like so mechanical, so much like following, a program, but I didn't have joy in it is basically what I'm trying to say. And so I have been really trying to find joy and meet that balance with all facets of my life. And, going back to the point of finding joy that's met with action. So what I started to realize was the reason why I was at this like stuck period with my career, or have been like up until, recently, even recording was the same thing. Like, I would just be like, stop and go. Like I would record and then I wouldn't. And then I'd hem and haw and all this stuff. And what I started to realize was that the reason why I was doing that is because I was allowing fear to hold me back. And my joy in doing things, as part of my career, as part of, what I feel is my calling, kind of had that really stuck energy because I was truly kind of holding on to these fears and these things about, I can't do this or I can't do that, or I'm afraid to do this or I'm afraid to do that. But I, masked that with like, oh, I feel lost. Like, I don't know. And so it's so funny because I started reading this book, and the book is called Be Seen. It's actually by Jen Gottlieb. I hope I'm not butchering her name, but it's an amazing book that I had started reading. And what I really loved is that she touched on there's what she outlines as 6 symptoms of fear. And so I wanted to share them with you guys because maybe you're experiencing this too. And maybe these same fears, because literally I went through her list and I was like, yeah, that's me 100%. Yep. And it really kind of spoke to me to where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is why I have now been so serious with my career and so serious with like, I got to figure this out, because I was allowing fear to hold me back. But I kept masking that fear with saying I'm lost or I'm stuck or I'm waiting around for the answers. And that's where you kind of need to have that action as well. So I wanted to kind of go over these 6 symptoms of fear that she, kind of went over in her book that I thought was super fascinating. So the first one of what she says is that it's easy to acknowledge fear when it presents itself in the form of heart flutters while you're watching a scary movie, so on and so forth. So like that kind of fear is easy for us to be like, oh yeah, that's a fear emotion. But it's trickier to recognize when it sneaks up and it disguises itself as other emotions that prevent you from taking action. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Like this is 100%, has been my MO, especially with, stepping into this new arena of, my career and not following I guess you would say, the safer card, which is what I was so used to or accustomed doing before. So I started reading these symptoms of fear and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is 1,000% me. But she said the first one is a fear of missed opportunity. So what she's basically saying here is that it's a fear of missed opportunity when you see some of your peers doing great things and you thinking to yourself, gosh, that should be me, or I should be doing that. And this just happened to me recently, even just this week. There was a gal that I used to work with when I used to be in my modeling days, and I came across her Instagram and I saw that she's doing all these wonderful things. She's a part of a nonprofit. She also is a new mommy. She has a swimsuit line. She's doing all this killer stuff. And I'm watching it and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I, should be tuning into this. Like, because like I said on the last podcast, me finding out that I'm going to be a mother was something that was like a total shock and a surprise, but it kind of threw me for a loop because I was like, well, what does this mean for my career? What does this mean for my future, for Leeann, and balancing family and balancing work life? And so for me, that was something that like really kind of, I didn't know how to navigate when I first, had this happen, of finding out I was going to be a mommy. And so seeing her page, it was like that spark of inspiration that I was just like, you can balance it all. You can balance and find your groove. It's just a matter of, navigating it step by step, and also being able to just acknowledge that it's like, you can do anything. You can do anything that you set your mind to, and don't limit yourself. And that's where I feel like a big thing that I'm still letting go of is those self-limiting beliefs, thinking that I have to choose one or the other, thinking that I have to, only settle for X, Y, and Z because that's what I limited myself to. And it was a form of my fear. So I, like I said, have just even experienced this fear of missed opportunity, even just this week. So the second one that she talks about is comparisonitis. And Lord knows that I have 1,000% experienced this a million times in my life as well. And so this is basically what she describes is when we live in a social media world that it's easier for us to, look at the should. So have you ever gone to scroll down social media and found yourself thinking, I should dress more like them, or I should run my business more like theirs, or I should create content like that. I wish my brand was as profitable as theirs. I should decorate my home like that. So if we don't live up to these shoulds, these highlight reels plant inside of our brain, and we can start to catch what's called the case of comparisonitis. And this is so true because I've done this a million times over where that's what's held me back, where I'm like, oh, I'm not at that level. So like they're doing it so well. Like, I don't know if I can do that. And, comparing myself to them. And this is something that I definitely feel that I want to really, keep challenging myself with, is because in my head, I would say, who wants to listen to me if I don't have it figured out? And the funny thing is that when I've related to people the most, it's because they either are just being authentic and real about where they're at and they don't have it figured out either, but they have maybe one step ahead of me. Or, the people that are really like forthcoming with their experience, like where they admit that, hey, like I came from here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's where I'm at. So to me, like those are the people I relate to the most. And so I really have had to get out of my own way where I'm just like, no, who cares if you don't have everything figured out? Who cares if I'm not, the expert in every little thing and it's, whatever, like it doesn't matter. You never know who this is, who I'm speaking for. And I never know like who this can touch, And so for me, that's where like that comparisonitis, I'm like, I can't keep looking at other people and saying, oh, they have it all figured out. Look at where they are, because it's like, what about that road to get there? And that's why I feel like there's so much value in sharing your story just where it is, because again, we're all like trying to grow. We're all trying to get to another level and level up in our lives. And so, you sharing that along the way, that's, just as important as someone sharing, when they've made it and are successful and what steps took them to get to that place, of how to better their own life, And so anyway, so this comparisonitis is definitely another fear that I have experienced. So maybe it's something that you have too, to where it's like, okay, we need to put those shoulds be like this or that, on the sidelines and just focus on, ourselves and where we're at and honor wherever it is that we're at in our journey. And she said, to double down on that, like her last sentence of comparisonitis, she said that you are exactly where you're supposed to be at the exact right time. The more you should on yourself compare and focus on the other guy, the longer it will take you to get to where you want to be. And this is so very true. It speaks such volumes to me. The next one that she describes is analysis paralysis. Again, check. Yes, I have definitely experienced this a lot more times than I'd like to admit. But what she describes this as is that she asks the question, are you the type of person who needs to ask at least 6 people what you should do before you do it? Or have you ever spent an hour in the fitting room debating between 2 shirts, then walked away out of the store with nothing because you couldn't make up your mind? And also she even says, have you ever had tasks that should have taken just a few hours that takes weeks or even months for you to do? And that is 1,000% what I'm talking about. Like when I've been doing this podcast, I have literally had analysis paralysis like no other, because I continuously am like, okay, the indecisiveness of like, should I do this topic? Should I do that topic? Or, should I be like this person? Should I be like that person? And it's like constantly, before I know it, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I can just go on and just be myself and just talk about whatever speaks to me at that moment or whatever I'm going through at that moment, I am literally putting it off, like this whole, I have to have this grand thing figured out. And before I know it, I'm analyzing so much that I'm not doing what I love. And that's that joy piece. It's like finding joy in what you love to do and not analyzing every little thing in order for you to take an action. And so this was huge for me hearing this one, because she said that being in indecision for too long is just another way to stay stuck. And that's what I have felt. Like I said, I felt stuck for a while when it came to me transitioning from, leaving my old, I guess, job and version of myself, because I kept sitting around thinking, something was going to happen, or this magic fairy dust was going to, come around, and then it was like everything would be figured out. And I'm like, okay, nothing's happening. And so I'm feeling stuck. And so I had to start taking action in order for me to let go of the things that were holding me back. But then it came creeping back in, even in the career front, because like I said, I was constantly analyzing every little piece of the puzzle. And then before I knew it, my indecisiveness on things was holding me back from achieving what I want to, or just feeling good to just do, little things along the way. And so this was another huge one for me to read. So again, I'm like, check. on all of these, different states of fear. The next one, which again, this is probably one of the biggest ones that I have struggled with, which is perfectionism. I am a Virgo, and so I love organization. I love to have all the pieces of the puzzle of, what I'm doing in order for me to, carry it out. And perfectionism has definitely been something that I have struggled with, and that I am still working on and still trying my best to kind of find a balance with it. Because one thing that she did say with fear in general is that you're not supposed to get rid of it altogether. Fear actually does help us in a lot of ways. However, you need to put fear into the passenger seat, and you're the one that takes control, not fear taking control over you. And so that's where I'm saying, like with perfectionism, it's like finding a balance with it where it's not overtaking. It's like, okay, I have my little points that I like to make those, fine-tuned, which is great, but not to the point where it's like debilitating me to where I am finding myself again having that fear with perfectionism that everything's not perfect in order for me to make, some type of action. And so she basically says with this that when you refuse to take action until something is perfect, then you will never press go because perfect doesn't exist. And is that not the truth? I mean, that is something that I read and I was just like, I've heard this a million times before, but it was almost like hearing it in this way, knowing that it's a form of fear. I used to like chuck it up to where it's like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. Like it's like a a beautiful mask that I'm wearing, a perfectionism, and not realizing that it was holding me back. It was holding me back from taking action or, recording. Like I said, I think it was episode 2 that I went down and was trying to record and make everything perfect. And then I finally was just like, this isn't fun. Like I shut off everything. I started crying and I'm just like, this is not working for me. And it's because I was trying to be too perfect. Like I wasn't just sharing to share the joy of, my experience. I was like trying so hard to just have everything so fine-tuned that before I knew it, took the fun out of it, and then I never did it, and I had to come back to record, which it was better recording, the second time around. But again, perfectionism. And I feel like even for me in kind of like my, soul work, it's also been letting go of that perfectionism too, where I'm like, okay, I have to have everything figured out. I have to let go of everything. I have to, have all my ducks in a row. And it's like, no, it's messy, like that's okay. I mean, you trying to let go of things that are like really embedded in your subconscious, like it's not going to be pretty. And like I've shared before, on some of my previous episodes as well, is that I have had the same lesson come around time and time again until like I finally got it, because I needed to relearn that, and I wasn't perfect, and that's okay. It's beautifully imperfect. We all are perfectly imperfect beings. I mean, that's life. That's why they call it life school, is because we're literally here to learn these lessons and not be perfect doing it the first time. It could take us a million times, but who cares? It's okay. Life is meant to be a little bit messy and a little bit beautiful and a little bit of everything in between. So it's really funny what she says with this, because she said some people walk around wearing their perfectionism like a badge of honor. That was me. And she says, but saying you're perfectionist really just tells people that you're a professional procrastinator. And I started laughing so hard. I was like, oh my goodness, that is 1,000% what I was doing. I literally was like, okay, this has to be perfect. This has to be. And then before I know it, like, tasks again would just take, so much longer to do. And the reason being is because I was trying to make everything absolutely perfect, and I was procrastinating. Why? Because fear was holding me back. I'm going to be judged because things aren't perfect. And it's like, by whose standard, And if you do things in your life and they aren't received by some people, who cares? At the end of the day, like, as long as you're living your life from a place of heart center, from a place of truth to you, and, a place of love, and you're not trying to hurt others, like, you know what? Who cares? Who cares what other people think? And again, easier said than done, because I'm still, fighting that battle as well of not, trying to worry about what other people think. But I think that perfectionism, where I did pick that up since I was little, was because I didn't want to be judged. It's like this fear of being judged. And so I would get like busy with these tasks of making everything perfect for the mere reason of, really, the root of it was fear. So I thought that was super funny when she compared that to like basically a professional procrastinator, because I'm like, yeah, 1,000%. For the fifth one, she actually goes into imposter syndrome. And I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but for those of you that haven't, she said that imposter syndrome is something that, having that moment of debilitating fear of being found out as undeserving for, a position or a job or a responsibility. And what she said is that there's actually 70% of people that experience at some point in their lives, especially high achieving individuals, is this imposter syndrome. And again, something that I've definitely have experienced, again, with me doing this, podcast, for example, like, oh, like, people, like, are they going to really, like, relate or want to even listen? Like, what if I'm not good enough, or am I good enough, and comparing myself to other people on top of that too. But that imposter syndrome is definitely something that I have faced. And what's really funny is that she had went on to say in the book that she had, in her old career, she worked on that metal show or something, I think on VH1, and she was doing an interview, and after the interview that she had done with this like really famous rock star, he like went up to her and he was like, how was I? Did I do good? Like, was it, did I say everything that I needed to? And it was like, oh my gosh, here's this very, very successful rock star that makes millions of dollars, is like known all around the world, and even they, are showing signs of that imposter syndrome, so it's just showing that we're all human and we all experience these types of things, and you're not alone in doing it. And so I just thought that was super fascinating, even just hearing, her share her experiences with like her own imposter syndrome and others. And I'm like, oh my gosh, absolutely. I've definitely been there 1,000%. And then the last, fear that she had described was disease to please. And again, ding, 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 this has been myself as well, where she said that the disease to please can disguise itself as good manners or being humble, but this symptom of fear shows up whenever we downplay our accomplishments and deflect compliments, dimming our light because we don't want to make those around us uncomfortable. She also said that this is also known as being a people pleaser. 1,000%. She went on to say, actually, which I thought was super interesting, that a lot of women actually have experienced this debilitating level of disease to please because we're taught so young that we need to make people like us. So we worry that if the light of ours shines too bright, that the people around us will get jealous or angry. And she went on to say, but often this comes from an even deeper rooted fear of stepping into our fullest potential. So allowing ourselves to take off the mask, fully go for it, and then start to shine can be terrifying because it opens up to us being judged and rejected. But staying small with the perfect valid excuse of not wanting to upset people or make them feel bad means hurting towards a moment of 20 years when you wake up with the regret for never going for it. So playing it small doesn't serve the world. The more brightly that you allow yourself to shine, the more you give other people permission to shine their light too. Wow. This to me spoke so much volumes because I've heard from other spiritual teachers and things that I have come across, in this journey, that they kind of spoke on this too, where it's like, if you don't share your light, then, you potentially are, basically a mirror to someone that is telling them, at a subconscious level that it's not okay for them to shine their light as well. And it almost takes you out of kind of like you focusing in on yourself to more focusing your attention outwardly, where you're like, oh, I want to be able to shine my light because, that can help someone else. And it almost like takes you out of that like, oh, if I shine my light, I fear that people will reject me. And even for myself, like going on social media and getting behind the camera, talking to people, and doing something that I have never done before, which is oh my gosh, like it's so intimidating. But I've said it before that I feel like the things that intimidate you the most are where the most breakthrough is. And when you kind of go through those moments that you really try to just like break through that fear and really like step into your power in that way, into that confidence, it's amazing what things kind of arise from doing that. And for me, I definitely feel like my whole life was just fear of kind of being seen and fear of, shining too brightly. Because I've had experiences where people are like, you're too much. I've had experiences where I've had friends that were very jealous and made me feel bad, because of their insecurities, for just being myself and for just being goofy, for just being weird. And it really made me dim my own light. And that's something that I take responsibility for, because I thought, oh, okay, if I dim my light down, if I play it safe, then people will like me. And it's like, no, then all you're showing the universe is like, okay, keep bringing people like that into my life. And it's like, no, you want to shine your light so stinking bright that's what you attract, like attracts like. And that's something that I feel like so many people in the world really need to tune into, that piece of, not being afraid to be authentically yourself. And you know what? Like, even if you have to go through those highs and lows of like finding the right people or finding the right community, like it's okay, because it's worth it. And even for me, like I've talked about even on the podcast as well, that I've had issues with friendships to where, I realized like they weren't serving me anymore. Like it just didn't feel like true or speak truth to my heart. And the reason being is because I was a version of myself. I wasn't truly being myself in the presence of those people because I feared rejection. I feared being, judged. I feared a lot of things. And so I was a shell of my personality. I was like trying to be perfect. Like I'm the good friend. I'm the one that always shows up. Like I'm, just this version of myself. But really what I was doing is trying to protect myself because I didn't feel seen in those relationships. And it took me, kind of getting the punching bag time and time again until I finally got to a point where I was just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I sticking around for this, And again, this whole topic of just shining your light bright. It's like, it doesn't matter what area of your life, whether it be in your relationships with loved ones or with friends, whether it be in your career, whether it be, whatever it is. It's like, you doing that, you never know that domino effect it's going to have in your own life, as well as the domino effect that it's going to have in other people's lives and the experiences that you'll attract, because you're basically showing the universe that you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to glow up. I'm ready to take my life to that next level. And so to me, that last fear that she had, described really just spoke volumes, and especially as being a woman who has had those experiences where I felt like, oh, I don't want to make, other people uncomfortable or jealous or whatever. I read this and I just really, it hit such a huge note with me where I'm like, no, like I deserve to be the best version of myself, because that I don't want to deny myself of that. And also because I have such a strong pull of wanting to help other people, it's like, well, how are you going to help other people if you're not willing to be that beautiful, bold self or light that you are, that attracts other people to you, So I don't know, food for thought. That was a huge one for me. And she ended that one by saying, the only way to grow is to get out of that comfort zone and experience some pain, uncertainty, and of course, fear. She said that every time that you do experience this and you make it to the other side, you get to have more courageous energy. And this is so true, because it's like what you're showing yourself is that you're like, okay, I have fear. A very normal human component, right? But instead of me cowering down away from it, I'm actually facing it and I'm showing myself, ooh, I'm putting more courage into my courage bank, and it's filling it up little bit by little bit. And to me, that is something that I think all of us can, really thrive from, is just being able to have a little bit more courage to do the things that speak truth and speak, volumes to us. Like just having that courage to do that. It's like, imagine what the world would look like if everyone lived their life that way. So, after I kind of, again, came to this realization that I was allowing a lot of those fears that I described, from the book, into my life, it was like, again, okay, so it's finding joy while facing my fears and like having this balance of like taking action and being courageous. And one last thing that she had kind of discussed that I just wanted to mention here today, which I think is great. I just started implementing this recently. Is she said a way to build your confidence and really kind of challenge fear is by giving yourself a dare of the day. So I dare you to start doing this yourself, where you basically, in your day, you have a dare that gets you out of your comfort zone and you do it. And I think the example that she had said in the book was like she would go to a coffee shop and just ask for 10% off just to ask for 10% off. And I'm like, oh gosh, that makes me nervous. But something that I did was talking to a stranger, because for me personally, I was so used to in my old job, like always having people around, always like interacting, and now working from home. I'm not having much interaction with other people. And then when I would go out and about, I realized like I was almost kind of being more clammed up and I wasn't just striking conversation and having interaction, at, just like a human component level with other people as regularly as I was before. And so, one of my dares of the day was like, oh, go talk to that person, or strike up a conversation with that checkout clerk or whatever. And it helps. And it's amazing, like the conversations and the things that kind of come from just challenging yourself like I did, with just having a conversation with a stranger. It just made me feel more full. And I'm like, all right on. But she said, make sure that this is a dare of the day that's not going to put yourself in danger or someone else in danger. These are more dares that are to help you get out of your comfort zone and to help you kind of challenge yourself to grow in that confidence. So do things that are, that speak to you in that way. And what those things are, instead of you being like, oh, I wish I could go up to that guy, or I wish I could, do X, Y, and Z. It's like, dare yourself to go do it. So that's going to be it for today. So I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, and I'm going to give you one last little call to action, which is to do your dares of the day, see where it takes you, and just do one of them a day and see, how much courage or how much it fills up your own joy. And that's kind of that joy meeting that action piece. And I would love to hear from you guys. Share your experiences with me, let me know kind of how it has helped you if you decide to do your dares of the day. You can hit me up on any of the major platforms. My social is at Leeann Soulful, and I will put that in the show notes. And I'm on all major platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So anyways, I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, and we will see you guys next time.